one of the things we do on our evaluations is obviously move plays around that need to be moved around so that coaches actually watch your film. The second thing is we share what divisions you should target, because if you don't know what divisions you're targeting, any outreach you're doing and marketing you're doing or tagging coaches, if it's not the right divisions, you're not going to get anywhere, right? You're wasting all of your time. And then the last thing is what you need to do to get to the next level. What do you need to show on your game film to go from D2 to borderline FCS to FCS G5, right? And then up from there. So what does that look like as far as what he needs to do to get to the next level? How to Get a College Football Scholarship, a series where we evaluate active high school football players, break down their game film, and then at the end reveal what level they have the best chance of earning a scholarship in, and most importantly, what they need to do to get to the next level. And joining me today is our co-host and head football coach at Next Play, Brian Overton, who has over 15 years of Division I college football experience. So Brian, break us down. Who do we got today? Who are we going to be evaluating? And by the way, before you do that, Brian, if you'd like to see if your son meets the criteria for us to do a professional evaluation, we'll leave a link in the description below. So Brian, sorry, go ahead. Who do we got today?
So we got a young 2027 linebacker today that I really like. I think he's got some good upside.
Okay.
About five, I think he's about 5'11", maybe 185 or so. I think he's got some room to grow there. But let's just jump right into it, and we'll start his tape. So it's a little about 3.5 minutes long. I've got some notes on some certain plays here that I
Awesome.
want to highlight, but we'll just let it ride here,
Yeah.
and we'll talk about those as we get to it.
Cool, cool.
Um, So you can see he had good production last year as a sophomore. So he started off his tape with, a couple of special teams plays here. I'll talk about a little bit more about that at the end. But obviously he's flying down there. He shows a lot of physicality on these two plays. These are the only two special teams plays he put on there, and he picked two good ones, I think. Because one, it shows special teams value, and two, it shows awesome things, that they're going to translate the next couple of years. And as you can see here, and that kind of gets into his defensive tape. Um, you can kind of see, I like his instincts, as a young player. You can see he sees it really clearly. Like that right there, he kind of dissected that play really well. Plays on the balls of his feet. He doesn't play on his heels. He's always going forward. I think he's got above average strength for a guy his size and class year. To be
Okay.
honest with you, you don't see him going backwards very much. He's got a good base, good technique, tackler. He can. I think he runs pretty well. So this is a play that I had him on my notes to move up because it's sideline to sideline and because of this finish right here. It shows some burst. I think he's got pretty good burst right now as a young guy. So right there he covered some ground pretty well. Got there violently. He shows instincts right there, kind of dissecting that play. The short area burst on things like that as a young player, and because I had the 131 play up there too, where I think he needs to move up. Really helps you as a young player when you can show that short area burst, especially at linebacker. And this play coming up here at 157, I had circled down here on my notes as well. Only because this one needs to be really high, okay, in my opinion on the tape,
Yeah.
and because I think out of all the plays on his tape, just to give some context here, this one probably is in the top two or three. That's probably going to translate to today's college game as much as any of them, because you've got a perimeter play here. He's having to dissect it. He's having to cover ground. The ball's in the middle of the field, so he's having to cover a good amount of ground out to the hash, almost outside of the hash, and it's in the open field, and he's got to make a play and figure out a way to get the guy on the ground. And that happens way more often now than the between the tackle stuff. The guy's got a little wiggle out there. He made a really good tackle. He kept his feet under him, made a really good tackle. So I really like that play. That's a play that we would have him move up in his order. And again, when we get to the end of it, I'll talk a little bit more about his order. But I had that one circled as well.
So let me ask you a question, because this is an interesting, for a lot of people watching, like when you're breaking down a linebacker like this and you're watching the game film, I know you've kind of shared a lot of things that you're looking for, from a college, director of recruiting, especially, you've been at Division 1, Division 2, you've been in the SEC too. Like, what are the first couple things you're looking for that they do on their film?
If you're the parent of a high school football player who wants to earn a college football scholarship and your son is struggling with marketing himself or confidently communicating with college coaches, I wrote this book specifically for you. Inside it, I share exactly how I earned a Division 1 football scholarship in the SEC at just 5'7" and 150 pounds, without going to camps, being ranked, and without any connections. And right now, I'd like to give you a copy completely free. All I ask is that you just cover shipping. I'll drop a link in the description below so you can grab your copy before we run out.
I mean, at linebacker, and obviously class year matters in some areas it doesn't. But the number one thing, and we've said it a bunch on here, if you play linebacker, and you're not physical and you don't play the game violently, it's hard to really stay interested, to be honest with you. Like, you can have a lot of physical tools at that position, but, if you're not really willing to really put your face on people, and have some stick and stop tackles, and what I mean by that is, when you make contact and you bring your hips with you and you make a form tackle, that you're not losing a lot of ground. It's a tackle for no gain, or, there's no yak yards and things like that. Guys aren't consistently breaking tackles on you and things like that. For me, the way I was, trained in this business by some of the best that's ever done it, that is at the top of the list for me at linebacker. Is the physicality and the way you play the game. Okay, right after that is I'm really looking for some sort of natural instincts. Like I was talking about a little bit as it was playing. And some of this is technique, some of it is natural ability. But he plays on the balls of his feet. You know what I mean? So he's kind of forward moving already all the time, but he's not. It's not necessarily stepping forward, but he's in a forward attacking position like all the time, just like naturally, right? And you can tell if you watched enough tape, you can tell like when things are going on in front of them to the naked eye, or people that don't, haven't watched a lot of tape or are not looking for specific things, it's like stuff's going everywhere. Like there's people moving everywhere. But when we're watching it and we're watching a linebacker, you can kind of see which ones it slows down for. He can really dissect what's going on in front of him and try to, in a lot of plays on his tape, figure out how to put himself in position to make a play with all those moving parts. And this kid does it at a young age without losing ground. Some guys, even older players, even seniors, but this kid as a young player can dissect it with it going on in front of him, almost moving forward most of the time if he doesn't have a blocker to engage. You'll see even older guys, seniors that are good players, relatively good players that have to kind of back up and kind of see what's going on and then go forward again and diagnose it and go make the play. This kid, you can tell the game is slower for him in front of him, and he always finds a way to make a play going forward and gaining ground on defense. And so his instincts really show. And so that's really high on the list for me. Just kind of natural instincts, the way you play the game, the way you run around, and not losing ground. And then obviously the physical intangibles are going to come in. I mean, we'd be naive to say that the height and the weight and thing, depending on the division you're looking at, and targeting, that obviously comes into play. And can you run? Can you cover ground? Sideline to sideline. And some of that, guys, and I've talked about it before, depends on the scheme and what they're asking you to do. So that doesn't always apply. There's not a cookie cutter thing there, because it depends on what kind of defense they run, I'm just using bigger college football just as an example because most people watch bigger college football. But, you've got some teams that have identities in the leagues they're in. It's more of, a running game and play action game. It's not spread, throw it around a bunch, this, that, and other. So they're looking for a bigger, more physical inside guy, more of a hash to hash guy versus a sideline to sideline guy, because that's just not how a lot of teams are set up that they play, or it's not how their defense is set up. So it can be position specific too, but you have to have some sort of physical intangibles as well, and you have to be able to run and cover to a certain degree. But I would say those first two, are really non-negotiables almost for me. Looking at linebacker, depending on what level it is, if you can do those two, at a high level, the other things you can kind of get better at, right? You can get
Yeah.
bigger and stronger and faster. You can't get taller, but you can get bigger,
Yeah.
stronger, and faster,
Yeah.
working on those things. The first two, in my opinion, you either got a good amount of it or you don't, in
Yeah.
my opinion.
And I mean, I obviously, like, when you were at Arkansas, you recruited some great players, and like I got to watch one of them that you recruited, obviously because he transferred from Arkansas to Ole Miss, and just watching this kid, I was like, I had never seen a linebacker play that way. Obviously, and when I was there, I watched some mean, angry guys, but this dude just plays, and he's the speed. You recruited him, Chris Paul, right? Pooh Paul.
Yep. Yep.
Um, Dude, I mean, just his mentality, the way he plays. Like, if you watch his highlights, you should watch his highlights. By the way, go Google him, Pooh Paul. Was he a second round pick? Did he end up going in the third round? Fourth?
I
Where
think
did
he
he go?
went in the third. I
Third
think he went
round.
in the third. Yeah.
Um, but he was the number one rated PFF player in all of college football, or all linebackers, last year.
And
Um, but he's a smaller guy, but he's fast. But anyways, what I'm getting at here is, like, you recruited I wanted to point out a guy, because that's a guy you recruited that has those first two things that you talk about. I mean, he plays violently, very, very aggressive, and like almost like angry, it looks like. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
he to your point, he has all the characteristics that I just talked about, like in that order. So when we were recruiting him, he was really violent in high school. Like and he wasn't near as big, obviously, then as he was
He
obviously
really
after
wasn't that
many.
big. Like, I mean,
I mean, even after many years of being in college, he got bigger. So you can imagine he wasn't even that big when we recruited him out of high school. But he
yeah,
was he was similar. I'm just saying stature, kind of to this kid. But he played the game really violently. He had some natural instincts. He was always forward leaning, forward moving. Like, he just really had a knack for being around the ball. The game slowed down for him. And that's exactly what he ended up being in college. Now, do you hit it every time? No, but like if you stick to those things, and again, back to what I was saying, what we were looking for at on defense where we were playing him, and Ole Miss ended up playing him in the same exact spot
yeah,
that we did, which was the offside linebacker. We were looking for a guy that could run above average, like could really cover some ground at that position because of the way the game's played in that league and things like that. And this kid can, he can run, and he's very instinctual, but he plays probably faster than he runs his 40. People get enamored with all that. You know what I mean? I think he ran 4.5 at the combine or whatever. That's plenty fast. But if you
crazy
watch his
for a
tape,
linebacker.
if you watch his tape, you would think he ran much faster than that, and that's what matters: how fast you play, how fast they can dissect it. Because he's moving sometimes faster than people that run faster than him, if that makes sense. He's
Yeah,
playing the game faster than the 4.4 guy is, which
exactly.
means he makes more plays.
Yeah,
So yeah, I mean, to that example, he checked all those boxes, which
yeah.
is why he had a lot of offers.
And the reason I bring that up is because I want, if you're watching this, if you're at any defensive position right now, you should go watch his game film, because like the things you can control on your film are the things that are going to help catch evaluators' eyes. Like, obviously Brian in his last position was in the SEC, right? So he was at the top of the top, but it doesn't matter. D2, NAI, FCS, like, they all want they want violence, they want aggressive, they want instinctual, right? The instinct stuff you got to practice, but the violent stuff you could show on film. So go watch his film, so you know exactly what we're talking about here, so that you can do that on your film, right? You need to show that on your film. You got to play like that too, right? And so that's why I wanted to bring that up, so that if you're a defensive player, you're a parent of a defensive player, get that film, go send it to your son, so that he could watch it, so he could see what his film needs to look like, right? So that's gonna help.
And I talk about these guys a lot too. Every time, like with our guys we're working with, and to their parents. Like, the two of the, Pooh's right up there with the best, some of the best I've recruited and played. Drew Sanders that we took out of the transfer portal, he was just an athletic freak. He went in the first round, but he was way off the charts on the measurables and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But two of the best that I ever recruited and played in the NFL were two-way players in high school when I was at North Carolina, and they played quarterback. They also played quarterback for their team. They played quarterback and defense, on their team. But they showed all those things when they were on the defensive side of the ball, all of them. You know what I mean? So, even if you're a two-way player, like, you know what I mean, you can play a finesse position. It's not like they were knocking people out on offense. They were playing quarterback. But when they went over there to the defensive side of the ball, they were a totally different player. But all that stuff that I just talked about translated, to them being obviously a better player on defense, and they ended up being two of the best, linebackers that I ever recruited. But they were also quarterbacks, so it goes for the same thing whether you're playing receiver or running back or whatever, and you're playing linebacker on defense for your team. All that stuff matters. It doesn't matter. Like those are check boxes that most of the time are going to be non-negotiable, no matter what division you're talking about. Like you just said.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So you paused it here. You want to finish off your thought
Yeah,
there?
because the only reason I paused it is because I had this play circled. This was the last one. So I just kind of wanted to let this one run here, and it shows kind of what we were just talking about. Okay, like let me get it back far enough so you can see it from the beginning here. See, you can look at what I'm talking about right now. Okay, he's on his toes. You see it, like he's already playing forward or has a forward stance, right? But everything that's going on in front of him, he's going to sort all that out. And just take notice that when he takes off to go make the play on the ball carrier, see if he loses ground or not. All right. See if he's diagnosing all that and all that going on in front of him. See if he loses any ground. Maybe a yard.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Right. So all that stuff was going on in front of him, and he still showed the burst and the diagnosis of the play, and probably kept this play from being an explosive, to be honest with you. They've got it blocked up pretty good. That guy missed the tackle. That honestly may be a touchdown. You know what I mean? So that's why I had this play circled, because this is a huge play, and it shows a lot of instincts. It shows burst. It shows a lot of good characteristics right here for a young player now. Remember, this is a 2027 we're talking about.
Right.
And so, and then he finishes his plays with, some other good stuff. But in reference to the order, because I said I was going to mention that real quick, like those special teams plays, like I've got 4 plays right there that I had circled, and some stuff down in my notes where I think there's at least probably 6 or 7 plays that he needs to shuffle around, stack them at the beginning. And I wouldn't be mad at those special teams plays because they're good and there's only 2 of them. Like sticking them as like a 8, 9, or 10, 8 or 9. And then, following with some other ones, not burying them all the way at the end because they are good and they show some special teams value. So just in context for the order of the plays I would suggest for him, I think he's got a solid like 7 or 8 that I would have like this and those other ones I talked about, and then throw those 2 special teams ones in the middle, because he didn't have, the good thing was he didn't have any plays we had him to take out. I think every one of them which is why it's nice and clean. It's nice. That's a perfect 3.5 minutes for a 2027 with the plays he has on there. I think is a really solid tape for a young player, because the ones he put on there, I think, demonstrate characteristics that coaches would like to see. So we didn't have him take any out, but we would have him kind of shuffle them around.
So that's an important thing. Like obviously, guys, this isn't the evaluation that we send to the family, right? We send them a very specific. This is more of just we do these YouTube videos to give you an idea, and so that you can also learn how we do the evaluation. So I just want to make that clear, that we actually send something very different than this to the individual families. Obviously, we wouldn't be able to make a YouTube video for every evaluation we do. That'd be a lot. But, so anyway, so what level, at 27, what level right now, where is he at as far as, getting, what level for earning a college football scholarship at this point?
Yeah, I mean, I think of, and again, we make this evaluation. Some of it is a projection, but most of it is where they're currently at right now. And usually what I say for these young guys is I treat it as though, let's say if nothing changed, like, if his tape didn't change from now to his senior year, which is obviously probably in most cases not going to happen. Theoretically, everybody's most of the time going to get at least a little bit better every year. But if nothing changed right now, I mean, I think off his sophomore tape, you know what I mean? I really like him as a Division II player. You know what I mean? He's a Division II player right now, like borderline, like FCS, type interesting guy. I think as a sophomore, because looking at his frame, I think he's going to grow into it even more. Like if he, even if he grows only an inch or two and gets up to 100, 195 pounds, I mean, that's what people are hunting in high school, man. If you can get to that size and you got the instincts this kid does, and his speed gets even better, and his burst, I mean, this kid's got a lot of upside. But that's where I would have him marked right now as we speak off his sophomore tape.
Okay. And so obviously, one of the things we do on our evaluations is obviously move plays around that need to be moved around so that coaches actually watch your film. The second thing is we share what divisions you should target, because if you don't know what divisions you're targeting, any outreach you're doing and marketing you're doing or tagging coaches, if it's not the right divisions, you're not going to get anywhere, right? You're wasting all of your time. And then the last thing is what you need to do to get to the next level. What do you need to show on your game film to go from D2 to borderline FCS to FCS G5, right? And then up from there. So what does that look like as far as what he needs to do to get to the next level?
Yeah, I think his short area burst is pretty good. I think to move the needle, like it's hard to kind of tell a little bit right now, what his long speed is. If he had to really get out and run. So I would say, really working on his long speed and really being able to get out there and run. If he could show some coverage ability, on his tape next year, and some things like that, I think that would help, kind of move the needle a little bit, showing that he can maybe cover a back out of the backfield, things like that. I do think based on, what he's shown, like his strength, I think is probably on par where it needs to be. You can tell, I think he's definitely working on that. But obviously, with a kid like this, long speed and just bigger, and just in general, bigger, faster, and stronger. Okay, that's what we told him to work on those core principles. But the biggest thing we told him to work on, because if all those things even get a little bit better, is his change of direction. Really get fluid in those hips, and I say that because of the coverage aspect. Okay, because in college football, you're going to have to cover some. You're going to have to drop in some zones at a minimum and be able to move around. And do those things. So we really had him concentrate on his change of direction, getting really loose in those hips and things like that, and really be able to flip them. And that helps him, do in those sideline to sideline plays like that too. So I think just little small stuff like that it looks like he's already probably working a lot of that stuff, but the better it gets and the more he works on it, I think his tape's just going to get better and better, because he's got some core like characteristics that I think give him a lot of upside.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, cool, good. Well, like we always say, divisions are great, and knowing you want to do to get to the next level is really good. But if you're not marketing yourself, you're not selling yourself, you're not confidently communicating, building relationships with coaches, then nothing matters, right? You can be, we hear it all the time. My son's all conference. He's this, he's that. But he doesn't have any offers, and that's because nobody knows him, right? And so, got to get definitely make sure you get an evaluation, whether it's from us or somebody else. And then from there, in this player in particular, he's a 27. We really, really hope that he's doing outreach. He's marketing himself. He's doing it consistently. He's doing it a lot of it, because there'll be a lot of opportunity on the other side for him. And if he doesn't have any offers right now, he should. So, really good stuff. And if you're interested in having our team do an evaluation, I'll leave a link in the description below where you can see if he meets the criteria. We do an evaluation every single Saturday. So if you enjoyed this, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification. And we also post videos every single Monday and every single Wednesday as well a podcast and more of like a how-to video. So I hope you enjoyed it, and we look forward to seeing you on the next one.